Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the meeting. We go to item 1, membership of the subcommittee. Are there any members attending or substituting today, or any apologies? I've got Councillor Mohan Sokal substituting for Gwen Lowe, and also Councillor Jackie Ramsey substituting for Fazila Lunath. Apologies from Councillor Masarat Pervez. We got Councillor David Hall substituting for Kath Taylor, and Councillor Andrew Marchington substituting for Andrew Pinnock. Any other? Got it? Okay, thank you for that. So can we all move to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting? I move that the correct record. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Hall. Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you, that is carried. Item 3, declaration of interest and lobbying. I've been contacted regarding number 40, Becky Crescent. That is the item 14. Councillor, start from this side. Councillor.
Can I declare an interest around number 11 and number 12? I wasn't expecting to be here. I have made comments on these matters and having taken some advice, think it's safer that I sit out of the discussion and the vote.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dodd.
Through you, Chair, I have been lobbied on agenda items 10, 11 and 12. No advice given. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. No lobbying, no interest. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Marchington.
None, Chair.
Councillor Scott.
None, Chair.
Councillor Hall.
None, Chair.
Councillor Sokal.
None, Chair.
Councillor Hall.
Item 13, Chair, lobbied on, but no advice given.
Councillor Gregg.
Item 13, lobbied on, but no advice given.
Councillor Sheard.
Lobbied on item 9, no advice given.
Councillor Stevens.
None, Chair.
Item 4, are there any admission of public? So there are no private matters on the agenda, so there's nothing private. Item 5, petitions or petitions. There are no petitions or petitions submitted today. Public question time. I don't think so. We've got any. No. All right. Okay. Can we move on to item 7?
Hello, Chair. Could you just bear with me a second? I'm having some small technical issues with screen sharing.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Sorry for the delay here. Sorry, I'm just having a little bit of difficulty accessing the PowerPoint. There we are. Can I confirm, Chair, you can see the PowerPoint at the moment?
We've got it on the screen.
Thank you. Okay, sorry about the delay there. Good afternoon, Chair. For those who don't know me, my name is Phil Champion. I'm one of the definitive map officers in the Council's Public Rights of Way team. This item is not a planning application, but is consideration of an application from Kirklees Neighbourhood Housing for an order under Section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 to divert public footpath Batley 40 and provide an alternative route to Howley Walk, as shown on this plan. The stopping up of Batley 40 would be required to implement planning consent 2020-93489 for the demolition of existing garages and the erection of 7 dwellings. The layout is shown on the plan that you've got on screen at the moment. Planning permission for this was granted in 2021. Small parts of the alignment of footpath at Batley 40 are currently obstructed. The applicant proposes to divert a longer length of the footpath than is obstructed to create a path that will run at the rear of the new development. The route proposed to be stopped up is shown by the bold solid line on the plan on screen now, between points A and B, and the new routes to be created are shown by the bold dashed line between points C and B, with also a new link from point E to point D. The Council may make and confirm a diversion order under Section 257 of the 1990 Act if it considers that it is expedient to do so when the following criteria are met. It is necessary to do so in order to enable development to be carried out in accordance with planning permission granted, and that the Council also must take into account the suitability of the proposal and the effect the change would have on those entitled to the rights that would be extinguished, in this case the public. Officers have carried out preliminary informal consultations. Ultimately, no objections have been received. If an order is made following this meeting, it will be advertised and notice served on various parties. There will be a period of at least 28 days for representations or objections. If the order is unopposed, the Council may confirm it. If there are any objections duly made and not withdrawn, the Council may forward the order to the Secretary of State at DEFRA, seeking its confirmation. Alternatively, the Council may decide to abandon the order. If members decide to authorise the making of an order but do not authorise officers to seek confirmation by the Secretary of State of an opposed order, we would need to come back to committee for a further decision on any objections that might be received and potential referral of the order, if opposed, back to the Secretary of State, or potential abandonment of an opposed order. If the subcommittee refuses the application today, the order is not made. There is no right of appeal for the applicant against a refusal. It's considered that the diversion would enable the implementation of planning consent 2020/93489, and it would be expedient when considering the effect on the holders of rights to be extinguished. The resulting public path provision would be appropriate and acceptable, and there would be no undue negative effect on public path users. The minor changes to paths outside the development are considered by officers to be appropriate to regularise and tidy up the historic use of land, including previous developments to the north, with perhaps unintentional encroachment by a private garden, and the communal drying area and bin store to the south, that's associated with flats at 50 to 60 Grace Lever Lane. Officers recommend members choose option 3 at paragraph 2.8 in the report. That is, to authorise the Service Director of Legal Governance and Commissioning to make and seek confirmation of an order under Section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act, i.e. to divert part of footpath Batley 40 and provide an alternative public footpath route. This would also authorise confirmation of the order by the Council if it is unopposed, and authorise seeking confirmation of any opposed order by forwarding it to the Secretary of State for confirmation. Thank you, Chair, and back over to you.
Thank you for that. Members? Councillor Sokol.
Mr. Chair, I think this application to divert the footpath is very straightforward, and the applicant, they are asking to change it for the, so they can redesign the housing development, which is for the community benefit. I think there is no objections at all. So board councils are happy to approve this application as well. And I think I should move the officer recommendation to as recommended by option 3 to move it, officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to refer to the report at 4.7, where there was an inquiry from the Open Space Society, where they made reference behind, this footpath being diverted behind a new development. We often find that it becomes quite contentious footpaths when they end up behind housing and things like that. But one of the other, so I just want us to be mindful of that. But they also asked about what materials were going to be used. And I think that's really important. We need to know what kind of materials are going to be used on this footpath. I support the diversion, but I think we need the clarity of what's actually happening.
Thank you. Is it possible we can ask the officer to just give us that information?
Yes, as my understanding of it, the surface would normally be expected to be crushed sandstone. I believe there is the possibility of the connecting path to sort of Howley Walk possibly having a sealed surface. But in any case, the route would be constructed to our satisfaction before we sign it off. In terms of the width, it's as shown on the plan. I don't have a number immediately to hand. I do note that there would only be boundary fencing along the north-south route where it runs past the gardens.
Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I'll second Councillor Sokol in moving.
Any other members? No. There's no members, so can we go to the vote, please?
Thanks, Chair. So the vote is on the officer recommendation to approve at option 3. Councillor Ramsey? 4.
4.
Yeah. Councillor Dadd?
4.
Councillor David Hall?
4.
Councillor Gregg?
4.
Councillor Sheard? 4. Councillor Stephen?
4.
Councillor Sokol?
4.
Councillor Steve Hall?
4.
Councillor Scott?
4.
Councillor Lawson?
4.
Councillor Margington?
4.
Councillor Hussain?
4.
That's carried. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that. That's carried. So can we move to item 8, please?
Sorry, excuse me. If you could just bear with me one moment more while I get the PowerPoint back up. Okay, thank you, Chair. This is a matter that's a little bit more complex than the previous item, but not excessively so. Again, this is not a planning application, but is consideration of an application from Housing 21 to stop up the alleged public footpaths between Kenmore Drive, Rooks Avenue and Milton Terrace, and for the provision of alternative footpaths. This application is again made under Section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act. The stopping up would be required to implement planning application 2020/91746, which is for the erection of an extra care development providing 80 apartments with associated communal facilities and landscape gardens. It is noted that on 16th of December, the Council Strategic Planning Committee resolved that formal approval of the application and issue of the decision notice be delegated to the Head of Planning and Development in order to address outstanding ecological matters and complete a list of conditions. I believe the decision notice is yet to be issued. As part of the development, the applicant would provide alternative footpaths linking Milton Terrace, Rooks Avenue and Kenmore Drive. This plan shows the proposed development, including the position of the building and the positions of the proposed paths, which are to be created through open space to the north of the development site. The Section 257 stopping up application would deal with routes associated with a definitive map modification order application, which was made to the Council to record public footpath routes between Kenmore Drive, Milton Terrace, Rooks Avenue and Kenmore View. The DMMO application under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 was made by Councillor Kath Pinnock in 2007, asking that the Council, as the surveying authority for public rights of way, recognise the existence of these claimed public footpath rights across the land. The public footpath routes, as claimed, are indicated by broken purple lines on the plan on screen at the moment. Officers have noted that there appear to be differences between these straight line routes, formerly claimed in the DMMO application, and more circuitous routes apparently available on the ground as identified from aerial photos. I believe there's an aerial photo at Appendix D in the report. The proposal before members is, for the avoidance of doubt, the formal closure, stopping up of all these routes and replacement with alternative footpaths. There has been no challenge to the existence of public rights across the site. The routes proposed to be stopped up are shown on this plan by solid black lines. I apologise if this plan is a little bit confusing. But the routes to be stopped up are between A, B, BC, BD, AC and AD. The replacement footpaths proposed to be created are shown by the broken black lines. So that's running between A to G to F and B, G to E to C and E to F. These would pass through what is proposed to be a public open space. Just to be clear, the paths proposed to be created are indicated in orange, solid orange lines on the plan on screen at the moment. The applicant has agreed that any new public paths to be created by the Section 257 order would be a minimum of 2 metres wide. Due to significant ground level differences, steps to an appropriate specification would be provided north of point C. I'm going to go back to the other plan. North of point C, where the new path would pass the development buildings. I'm advised that the steps would have handrails to either side and an additional handrail up the centre. Small parts of the claimed routes A to D and B to D, i.e. in the vicinity of point D, run over land in third-party private ownership at the very east end of Kenmore View. The applicant for the stopping up is not in the position to offer a path connection over that land. However, it is considered appropriate to include this land in the proposed footpath closure to avoid a very small cul-de-sac path, even though it lies outside the development site. The tests for making and confirming an order are as described for the previous item, and I won't repeat them now. A preliminary informal consultation exercise was carried out, including board members, various user groups, statutory undertakers, emergency services, and various other bodies. Notices were also posted on site for 28 days and on the council's website. There were no comments received from local ward councillors. Kirklees Highway street lighting did not require provision of highways lighting on the new paths. The West Yorkshire Police Designing Out Crime Officer raised no issues with the proposal. He stated that redevelopment of the site had previously been commented on for security matters, and the public rights of way had been taken into account at that time. A local resident has questioned the change to the path routes and would prefer the site to be undeveloped. Peak and Northern Footpath Society representative queried the lack of a link at point D, but noted in further discussion that he would be unlikely to formally object to the proposal. The Open Spaces Society representative requested that the development design be amended to accommodate tread lines, those visible in aerial photos, particularly between Kenmore Drive and Milton Terrace. Also that a footpath access be provided at Kenmore View. The representative notes that the current tread line and other lines have utility to residents and provide shortcuts and access to enjoy the green space. Various statutory undertakers consulted either had no objections or had no infrastructure that would be affected by the proposal. It's considered that the stopping up will enable the implementation of Planning Consent 2020/91746 and be expedient when considering the effects on the holders of rights to be extinguished. The proposal keeps a significant practical and recreational range of links through what is proposed to be a public space, connecting paths to east, west and north with an appropriate width of 2 metres. Officers recommend that members choose option 3 at paragraph 2.7 in the report, i.e. to authorise the Service Director, Legal Governance and Commissioning to make and seek confirmation of an order under section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. This would authorise confirmation of the order by the Council if unopposed, or seeking confirmation of an opposed order by forwarding it to the Secretary of State to confirm. That ends my presentation, and back over to you, Chair.
Thank you. Members? Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I see very little in this actually to go against it. In fact, I'm quite pleased that they've obviously put some thought into how they're going to replace the paths, because it actually looks to me with the groundwork that's going to be involved, it looks like it's going to be a nice amenity both for the residents of the new development and for the residents that live around it. The only question I did have was the subject of the steps, which I don't know if I missed it in the paper or not. It would be nice if you know, one row of those steps could be replaced with a ramp or something, just so that disabled residents might find it easier to get up and down the path. That's the only comment I would have. I don't know whether that's possible to sort out, but it's something that I would like to see. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other members? Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I echo Councillor Hall's comments on the steps, but probably worth noting that even the steps are an improvement on what's there at the moment. Can we, I mean, if we can get a ramp in there of some sort, that would be ideal. If we can't, it's still better than it is currently. I do have a question through you, Chair, which is about the section. I'm talking about tread lines really, and it's about the section between A and B, where we intersect the proposed path, and there seems to be a little, where one of the loops intersects with the lower line, on the more southward line, there seems to be a cross there, which is kind of a line of desire, if you like, I think they call it in highways. Could we have that up on screen, please, Chair, so I can perhaps explain myself a little better?
Can you put that on the screen, please?
That's the one, yeah. So if we travel that line between A and D, and it cuts through that loop, which is the most northwestward, I guess, from the map, there seems to be a triangle. It seems to be a triangle described there, and I just wonder whether those tread lines that exist at the moment might just cut off that corner. I just would like an opinion on that, and whether that's going to be resolved. I actually welcome this pathway. We've been at this for a number of years now in Cleckie, as my ward colleagues as well, to try and get a formal pathway set in there. I think also there is a hidden benefit, if you will, which is the pathway once being established creates a certain amount of protection for or against the further development of the rest of the site. So in a couple of different ways I welcome this proposal, but I would just like to know about that particular section of the path. Thank you.
Yeah, can you just explain what Councillor Lawson has just said, please?
Yes, apologies. I think I may have missed a few of the words there, so I wasn't quite sure which section of path Councillor Lawson was referring to. Between A and B, there were two. There was the claimed route and the desire line routes, but I wasn't sure quite what the question was in relation to that.
It was between A and D.
Yeah, I have, but I'm not sure. I wasn't quite sure the Councillor Lawson's question.
So I think the matter. Okay. What I'm trying to get to the bottom of is the point that was raised by the open spaces people about tread lines. There are a couple of issues here where we'd like to see those tread lines represented somehow or resolved somehow in the proposal. Is that going to happen?
The proposal is to replace the tread lines, as it were, with the line checked by a broken dashed line as an alternative to the tread lines. All the tread lines are to be stopped up and replaced by the broken line.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I just in terms of maintenance, you know, if people are treading where they normally tread, they will tread over lawns, they will tread over flower beds, and it could get quite scruffy quite soon, that's all. Otherwise, I'm happy to move this with those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol.
Yes, Chair. I actually agree with Councillor David Hall and Councillor Lawson. Yeah, and what Councillor Hall raised, the issue of the steps and the room. I think we need to see some improvement on there. Councillor Scott raised very valid point on the previous application with the material on the new diverted footpaths. Yeah, I think we need to put the conditions. They should use very good material on those paths. So I supporting on this application officer recommendation. I think option 3. Thank you.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Chair. I echo what's been said. I think it's a really positive change that's going to be implemented. However, just one concern, I don't know whether there's any clarity or rationale for the access to point D being removed. I'm not sure whether that was for what reason on Kenmore View. I know it was raised as a concern by the Peak and Northern Footpath Society.
Do you want clarity for that, yeah?
Would love clarity. If there is possibility for some rationale on that, that would just so people have knowledge of why that has been not put into the plan.
Can we have the officer back, please?
Yes, forgive me, I've only picked up this case in the last couple of weeks, so I wasn't party to previous discussions about why that wasn't included. But nonetheless, it's not within the proposal that's before you today. I'm afraid I can't offer much more information about that.
No, thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other members? So we've got Councillor Lawson propose. Are you, Councillor Lawson? Are you? Councillor David Hall proposing and you're seconding, yeah? Okay. Okay, no problem. Can we go to the vote, please?
Thanks, Chair. So the vote is to approve option 3. Councillor Ramsey? 4. Councillor Dadd? 4. Councillor David Hall?
4.
Councillor Gregg?
4.
Councillor Sheard?
4.
Councillor Stephen? 4. Councillor Sokol?
4.
Councillor Steve Hall?
4.
Councillor Scott?
4.
Councillor Lawson?
4.
Councillor Marchington?
4.
Councillor Hussain?
4. 4.
Carried. Thank you.
That's carried. So we're on to item 9, application number 2020-94345.
Okay, members, thank you very much. My name is Lyle Robinson. I'm a planning officer in the East Team Development Management. Just to introduce the application. It's land at St Luke's, Biley Marsh. I do not intend to repeat in total the information in your reports. In the officer reports before you. To commence the presentation, the site is that of a parcel of land and settlement of East Biley. The site is immediately east of Biley Marsh, which is an unadopted road with access to the public highway Southview Road to the north. Biley Marsh carries a public right-of-way. The site is characterised at present by self-seeded semi-dense shrubland behind St Luke's Church and Hall, essentially this area which I'm indicating with my mouse cursor. The site is at the area of proposed housing itself, not within the East Biley Conservation Area. The point of access within the site along Biley Marsh up to the public highway is within the conservation area. However, a Grade 2 listed war memorial abuts the site to the north. This is depicted here. And here's the satellite imagery. The site was last used as nursery land. Planning history indicates that the land, together with land to the south, was historically used in connection with a nursery business. This north field, which is the site subject of this application, was historically used to grow chrysanthemums for commercial purposes. In respect of the application at hand, this is an application for full planning permission for the erection of 5 dwellings in 2 groupings. 1 terrace of 4 2-storey dwellings here, with a single-storey dwelling to the east of the plot here. This is depicted as house type B on submitted drawings. Each dwelling house would have space within its curtilage for 2 parking spaces. The proposed dwellings have been revised in comparison to those submitted under the previous planning application 2020-90996, which proposed 6 dwellings and was subsequently withdrawn. In comparison to that, the revisions have been to assume a more traditionally articulated appearance, particularly prevalent here in the proposed terrace. Depicted here is the rear. The proposed bungalow, known as house type B, will be of a more contemporary design scheme. This would be the south-facing elevation. This would be the principal elevation. The 2-storey houses would have a maximum height of 7.5 metres with an eaves height of 4.5 metres. With the single-storey dwelling having a maximum height of 5 metres, eaves height 2.8, notwithstanding this mono-pitched roof element with the parapet. The main issues before you for consideration in this planning application relate to the principle of development, urban design issues attendant to visual amenity, residential amenity considerations, housing issues, particularly in respect of provision of housing of dwellings to the housing stock, and highway issues relating to parking and highway safety. The planning application is subject to the imposition of appropriate conditions as detailed in the committee report and committee update before you, recommended for approval. And as a final note, as detailed in the committee update, the road will now not be proposed to be adopted in line with the Highways comments in the committee update. I would, though, refer members to Highways officers in attendance today for further technical clarification on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. We have got 5 speakers, so can we have the first speaker, please? Stephen Hill. Hello, welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes. You can start now. Thank you.
Chairman, our letter of the 30th of August circulated to this committee supports statements that my wife and I make today. Byley Marsh forms a physical boundary with common land, as well as carrying the public footpath. Common land was repaired with loose stone and bollards, set back from the edge of Byley Marsh, and Kirklees also tarmacked Byley Marsh prior to the school extension and extended tarmac over verges shown on earlier mapping. The developer's survey did not pick up the change of materials as loose stone tarmac at the edge of Byley Marsh and only picked up the position of bollards which are set back on common land. Mapping now gives the impression that Byley Marsh is more extensive than is the case. Byley Marsh is not suitable for the intended purpose the developer wishes to use it for. The unique area and space is a local idyll and enjoyed by many using the footpath, and these proposals do not enhance the high amenity area. Revised access drawings show inconsistency with the red line site layout and it's not clear if there is space for the swept paths for fire appliances, as plans show the site boundary being the bollards. Plans appear to affect access and parking in front of Thornfield and show no access to our rear garden. We ask that the developer corrects detailing and confirms red line site boundary prior to determination. There are differing views around common land boundary. Byley Marsh as a metal street is a visible physical boundary, identifiable by a layperson. The boundary on the register of the common land shown by DEFRA and Natural England is shown much closer towards St Luke's. Boundaries can only be that as shown as on the title plan at the time of conveyancing. The general boundaries principle means that any revision to a boundary in accordance with resurveyed ordnance survey mapping is not significant. Plans show parts of hard surface works over common land, which is protected by the Commons Act 2006. Kirklees have commented that a strip of common land may need to be sold to the developer and state a likely need for land exchange if the common is lost. If this application is approved and the common land is sold, we request Kirklees give assurance that they agree to ensure that no development of this land takes place without consent under the Commons Act 2006, Section 38, and that in the absence of consent, they will take enforcement action if necessary using Section 41. Access rights to premises along Bailey Marsh may rely on private
30 seconds
and recorded in title documents. The site has never had a property on it, and deeds inspected at the Wakefield Archive might suggest that parts of the site need to be kept clear and open. Pre-planning and current documents also refer to a second field, potential further road widening, as well as moving bollards, both activities outside the red line boundary. We ask that the committee ascertains the intentions towards future development and associated access needs the developer may have, and consider any wider implications regarding impact on amenity.
Thank you. Can you just wind up, please?
And increase traffic volumes.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we have the next speaker, please? Catherine Hill. Hello, welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes and you can start now.
Thank you. Bailey Marsh has no registered title. Ad medium film ownership may apply. Some works are over this land. Extent of the developer's access right is awaiting response. Plans to reposition bollards opposite Thornfield beyond the red line boundary serve no purpose for this application. They should remain as is. We request that this is made a condition of any determination. Bollards were agreed and placed by Kirklees 25 years ago to protect damaged common and stop parking opposite Thornfield, which blocked our entry and exit. The developer is aware of concerns regarding site-specific issues, which include access road near opening windows would cause noise and pollution. Erection of a 1.8 metre fence, 1.5 metres from a 3 metre picture window is overbearing, oppressive, causes loss of light and visual amenity from our solid-walled and roof, centrally heated rear sun lounge. A high proportion of hard standing with permeable surfacing will make adjacent garden flooding worse. We support Highway's comment regarding street adoption, but a private street, public highway interface is unmanageable, and liability for increased traffic would remain on the frontages of the private street. Therefore, full adoption of all Bailey Marsh is needed, inclusive of a one-way system with a minimum width to protect encroachment on the common and safety of footpath users. We require these points are made in determination. The site has PLP 61 classification, which should remain due to local demand, thus contributing to Kirklees and biodiversity targets. Many of the high number of objections attained to the density and layout is not in keeping with the high amenity, low density area at odds with the immediate grain and flow of Bailey Marsh and Morehouse Drive. The terraces aligned at an angle create unnecessary overlooking and loss of privacy. The conservation appraisal warns too much infill development will have a serious effect on the character of the conservation area, as will loss of boundary walls, trees and open space, highlighting a need to avoid increase in building density. The Civic Amenities Act places a duty to protect and enhance conservation areas, including views, potentially being a row of parked cars, open access with no physical boundary feature. Kirklees Highway's design states front parking has a detrimental impact on visual amenity and the quality of a place. Density and limited parking may result in overspill parking in the conservation area. We request the proposed development be rejected in favour of a small number of bungalows.
You've got 30 seconds.
Boundary feature with hidden on-site parking currently in short supply and high demand in the area. There's no further mention of moving any other bollards opposite St Luke's towards the tarmac hedge, protecting the common land.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can we have the next speaker, please? Tom Owens. Hi, welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes. You can start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Thomas Owens, a resident of Biley Marsh and part of the development team, along with my father, Stephen Owens. I've lived in East Biley Village for over 34 years and my father for over 50 years. Throughout that time, developing and delivering several listed and sensitive developments in the village, also contributing heavily to the Village Preservation Society, especially around the regeneration of the village pond and maintenance to the marsh and village green. We are very conscientious and care about East Biley Village. With this in mind, the site in question is a redundant parcel of land following the demise of the nursery business and is now left fallow to the rear of the memorial. The condition of the site is now having a negative impact on the setting of the memorial and the wider village. The road status would be significantly improved in compliance with Kirklees policy. This, I believe, on a personal note, would also improve or eradicate antisocial activities from visitors that turn up smoking cannabis at night due to the road being dark and unlit. We have carefully considered concerns raised by local residents and others not so local. We have throughout the process looked to understand these issues and respond or address them as best we could. We have held on a number of occasions individual meetings with objectors to discuss their issue. This is the reason why we withdrew the first application and reduced the house number by 1, conducting a complete redesign on the site and redesign on the house that sits at the rear of the site to be sympathetic to the memorial. Also taking up on Councillor Smedge's comment on the design aspect of the application, in quotes, the development should fit into the conservation landscape in both size, design and materials. As confirmed within the officer's report, the design achieves these aims, is high quality in form and material, sympathetic to the character and historic interest of the surrounding built environment and landscape setting. The proposal respects and enhances the character of the townscape, it functions well and adds to the overall quality of the area. Extensive consultation with officers has occurred over the significant time this application has been under consideration. Their recommendation for approval reflects this process and that all relevant planning issues have been resolved, especially around the site, war memorial, design, urban green space policy, road status and common land. Finally, looking at this as a resident of the road, it's very important to me personally that the development is very sympathetic and considerate to its surroundings. I believe we have achieved this through the design period and I know that we can deliver.
You've got 30 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to put my points across.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Can we have the next speaker, please? Nigel Kirklees. Hello, welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes. You can start now. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman, ward members, my name's Nigel Jakes. I'm the architect for the scheme. I'm going to repeat a lot that my client just stated, but I will do anyway. The site is a redundant parcel of land following the demise of the business. It was used to grow chrysanthemums and has been left fallow now for quite some time. It blights somewhat the rear of the memorial. We've been in contact and consulted with the War Memorial Trust, who were happy with the proposals and have left the decision down to the Conservation Officer and the Conservation team in their recommendation to you. There has been many representations concerning the designation of the site as an urban green space. The site is not accessible to the public and has been accessible to the public. Evidence has been provided to the officers who have supported now excuse me, the fact that it is not a departure from policy LSP 61 of the Kirklees local plan. The issue of common land has also been a major issue that we've been dealing with. We've accurately assessed the boundaries with Kirklees Council's officers using their digital records. It took quite some time to get that information, and the site now and the works that we now propose do not infringe on common land. That has been confirmed within our documentation that's been submitted. So the issue of common land and infringement of common land or taking common land is actually not relevant to this application. We are outside the boundary of what is designated and agreed with Kirklees Council as the common land boundary. The road status of Bearley Marsh is a public right-of-way and as a footpath. The shared surface that we propose is in compliance with Kirklees Council's SPD as a 5.5 metre wide surface. This shared surface will safely accommodate both vehicles and pedestrians, and as such retain the public footpath element and provide new safe access. The design itself, as confirmed with officers, achieves the aims as requested by Councillor Smage of fit in with the conservation landscape in both size, design and materials. It's of high quality in form and materials, sympathetic to the character and historic interest of the surrounding built environment and the landscape setting, as I hope you could see from the elevational work that we've produced and the 3D perspective work. It's a small row of 4 terraces facing Bearley Marsh. It's in keeping with the terraces locally, it's of low scale, it's of materials that match.
30 seconds.
Providing housing. In conclusion, we've spent 18 months with officers evolving the scheme to the scheme that you now have presented before you. They're in support of it, recommending approval, and we'd like to believe that you could support that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Can we have the next speaker, Councillor Liz Mage, please?
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies for not being in the room today. There have been a number of concerns over this development, as you've heard, as it is in the centre of the historic part of the village. The boundary line of the conservation area runs down the lane past the field and then loops to encompass St Luke's and the War Memorial and Gardens. This is why it is so important that if there is to be any development, that it fits into the existing landscape, be sensitive to the conservation area, and why, if the plans are approved, there needs to be appropriate conditions to safeguard that conservation area. For those that don't know, the lane is well used by families for walks to see the pond, and the school is currently using part of the common land. There are concerns about the number of vehicles that could be parked on the front of the terraces and how this impacts on the lane around the marsh. The lane does have a prow running along it, and the mentioned bollards were put on the marsh in order to protect the erosion of the boundary of the common land. The parking that is shown at the side of St Luke's needs to be for the users of that building, and I have been informed since my remarks that 2 parking spaces will be for the centre. The common land is an important feature of East Biley, and I would ask that there is no encroachment of that land to be used for this development. I have asked in my comments that if the committee are for approving, that this be conditioned. This is also to ensure that there is no future erosion from this development. The public footpath right also need to be maintained at all times, and I would ask if that could be conditioned as well. I would also ask that flooding issues are addressed and so that they're remedied and not made worse. As you've heard, the War Memorial setting does need to be preserved, and currently from the Memorial Gardens you can see straight across the field, especially in the winter months. There needs to be an appropriate boundary that fits into the environment of the memorial, the gardens and the village. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So we have no more speakers or members. Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's one of these which is an unbalance to me, because when I read through the report, there's quite a lot of indications as to where actually it doesn't meet our own requirements. Paragraph 10.19, the proposed development therefore may potentially impact on the setting and character appearance And again in 10.20, the proposed development would introduce built form and massing, which would be visible from public vantage points in the conservation area. So, and then we've heard about the access on that little road, which I'm not entirely comfortable about, given that there are already, I think they said 7, or was it 8, properties on that unadopted road. So that again will be going against policy to put another 5 on. In terms of the design, I do think the cottages are in keeping with the rest of the village. I think they would be an enhancement. I think the bungalow looks horrible, and I wouldn't want it next to me. It looks like a prefab cattle shed from one side. But most of all, I think we've got a problem with that because of the actual designation of the land. And LP 61. The LP 61 is that there should only be development on here if we can prove an exception from the local plan. And if you look on page 46 of our pack at the top, paragraph 10.3, it does say that the exception should only be made, letter A, where an assessment shows that the open space is clearly no longer required to meet local needs for open space, sport or recreational facilities. And, so in addition to that, we need it to be shown that it does not make an important contribution in terms of visual amenity, landscape or biodiversity. So to my mind, I need a report in front of me to justify that exemption, which says that it is no longer needed for open space, sport or recreation. It doesn't make an important contribution in terms of visual amenity or landscape, and it doesn't make an important contribution to biodiversity. We don't have that. And in fact, from what I've heard from residents, it's quite the opposite. It is a valued piece of land. Paragraph 10.10 at the top of page 47, it's the same point again. In here, it's even put more clearly. The report in front of us must show that it clearly does not make an important contribution in terms of visual amenity, landscape or biodiversity value. I don't think I've seen that, and unless I see that, I don't think we can deviate from what is in the local plan. So I'm unhappy that hasn't been provided. And so instinctively at the moment, given that it was on balance anyway, I'm coming down on the side of refusal. But I'll leave it there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've seen the application, I've gone through the application, I've listened to the representative on here and Councillor Hall. To me, I think when the developer put the last application, they withdrawn. They listen to the officers or they listen to the local people, and then they come back with the reduced number of this housing development. They reduced from 6 to 5, and those 5 and is a different 2-story and single-story as well. They're putting those development fitting to the local design or local area. I think the number of the houses they are building, I think they will meet the needs of the local community as well. Yeah, I don't think there are any solid reason to refuse this application. I would like to approve it, but with some condition is proposed by Councillors Mays and her representation. So I'm happy to approve the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Before we move on, can I bring the Lionel Robinson back to answer Councillor David Hall's question, please?
Hello, yes, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I suppose it's not really a question of deviation from policy, it's rather about looking at the policy itself. It's really in two parts. A is the relevant exception, as Councillor Hall has picked up on. It's whether an assessment shows the open space clearly no longer required to meet local needs for open space, sport, recreational facilities. Well, an assessment that's made in the report, and I don't mean to expand on that too much, but it's evident from a site inspection from the case officer and from the current use of the site, which is self-seeded, shrubland and overgrown, that is not the case. I'd also point out the planning history of the site, which shows no historical or continuous use of any use attendant to either open space, sports or recreation. In fact, the site, as members know, was historically used in connection with nurseries. I suppose then the second part of that would be related to making an important contribution in terms of visual amenity, landscape or biodiversity value. I won't build on what the comments of ecology before you in the committee update state, but an assessment of visual amenity landscape is made both in the principal development section, highlighting the overgrown shrubland nature of the site, then to compare to that, so I draw you to the visual amenity section of the report in respect to the proposed development. So I suppose that would be the response to that in terms of the urban green space policy. And finally, members, you know, a comment is made that it is an on-balance decision. Well, all planning applications are decided on balance through, you know, a decision-making mechanism known as the planning balance. So, yeah, you know, I think it's legitimate to say this is on balance, and it is an unbalanced decision. However, for the reason I've just stated and in the report, it is considered that the policy is complied with. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I also bring the Highway Officer in, please?
Through you, Chair, ranking the Highway Development Management. Just to touch on paragraph 10.42 of the report. With regard to the access track known as Byerley Marsh, following discussions with the Council's Section 3018 regarding adoption, it's considered that Byerley Marsh is not suitable for adoption due to the circumstances detailed in the committee report update. However, due to the low level of development proposed, will be considered acceptable, subject to minor improvements and associated required conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor David Hall? Okay with that, yeah? Councillor Stevens?
Thanks, Chair. Just following on from the discussions about whether the land is clearly no longer required to meet local needs for open space, we did receive a statement from a representative of the East Byerley Village Preservation Society where they were hoping for that to be read out. Does that need to be read out to members, or?
She was asked to circulate it for the reason we don't read the statements out into committee, so it was sent to all committee members.
Yeah, okay, thank you, that's fine. It's just, for the substitutes, I wasn't sure whether they were aware of those views as well, because I think it was only sent to the actual committee members. Thank you.
Councillor Scott?
Yeah, I can only echo what Councillor Hall said on this. It's demonstrating special circumstances, I think, and for me, like we said earlier, it's on balance, and I don't think it's demonstrated any special circumstances. So I don't know where you are, Councillor Hall, with it, but I just think it's the site, and I know they say it's not used, but obviously there was potential for allotments and that, but if it's not been open to the people and they haven't realised, that's possibly the reason why they didn't. But I do think there is no special circumstances in this whatsoever. So I'm happy to refuse this application and go against officers' recommendations.
Any other members? Councillor Lawson?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I echo with what Councillor Scott and Hall have said. It is finely balanced, this. There is something about this application which I think leads us down quite a dangerous path actually, of the use it or lose it strategy in open space. And the nature of open spaces is that not all open spaces are manicured. And in fact, that's where we get a lot of our biodiversity from, is those wilding spaces. I understand this is a commercial space. There would be not much we could do if somebody set up a gardening business there or something associated, so I understand those restraints. But there is something about this development, I think, which it's just in the wrong direction. It leads us down a path that I'm not comfortable with. As to whether that's a material planning matter, that's a different ask altogether. If we are able to identify those material planning matters, I think I would be more comfortable refusing this. As it is, I will listen to the rest of the conversation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Legal Officer Sandra Haig. It was just to pick up on the term very special circumstances. That's more green belt, and I'd refer members more to 8.2 where the planning policy, it is a material consideration, and it's in there in further passages. Thank you.
Councillor Scott?
Chair, can I come back on that? I do realise that is green belt, but equally on this site, equally to me does not show any circumstances why it should be granted. It's very conflicting. It's an unbalanced decision.
Okay. Any more comments? No? If there's no further comments, go to the vote. Right. Right. Who's moving against? Councillor David Hall and Councillor Cathy Scott. Julia.
Thank you, Chair. So, in terms of, we obviously need to discuss now the reasons that you're looking at moving for refusal on the application. So, I suppose looking at sort of your paragraph 10.3 on page 46 of the report, it sort of refers in terms of like LP 61. It's looking at those exceptions. So, just in terms of like the terminology there. So it sets out sort of the different sort of exceptions that can be taken into account, and then sort of setting out about like the assessment on whether that open space is no longer required and things. So I think from members' discussion, you're suggesting that that you don't feel that sufficient justification has been put forward to demonstrate that this area of land is no longer required, notwithstanding that it's not been an area that's been open to the public, and it's sort of overgrown in nature, and it's had like commercial use in the past. So I think that's sort of summarised, I suppose, what you've been discussing. I think there was I think that's been the main discussion, really, hasn't it, in terms of the principle of development for residential purposes on the site. I think as we've set out in the report, because of that history or that historic use on the site, I think it could be quite a weak argument, but like I say, it's over to you guys in terms of that consideration as to whether you think that sufficient justification has been put forward, which demonstrates it is no longer required. Thank you for the moment, Chair.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I think the case we're putting over is how you arrived at an unbalanced decision. If it went through, we're doing the reverse. Because on balance, it didn't meet that criteria to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, like I say, it's setting out that you don't feel that sufficient justification there that's been put forward or demonstrated in the officer report or the submitted information, that the area of land is no longer required as open space. Coming down to justification, isn't it? Yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Steve Hall.
Yeah, just like some clarification about the state of the road, whether it's going to be adopted or unadopted. If it's not going to be adopted, then why isn't it going to be adopted? And why can't developers be forced to bring that road up to adoptable standards? Because we all know what happens when you've got roads like this. People are constantly pestering you saying, there's a pothole, we want a lamppost, grate's full. I'm not right happy, to be honest with you, about car parking spaces. It's all right having 2 car parking spaces outside your home, but where's guests going to stay, where they're going to park? I don't like, to be quite honest with you, I don't like look at terraced houses from front, but what does worry me is the back, because there's absolutely no privacy whatsoever. Like David says, I don't like look at that bungalow. It looks like a cattle shed. It's quite right. I don't like that at all. And one thing what I am bothered about is I'd just like to know what size these houses are inside, square footage or square meterage, if that's possible. Apart from that, everything else is fine.
Thank you, Chair. So I suppose just coming back on Councillor Hall's comments just then, I'll bring Ryan in one moment in terms of sort of the adoption side of things with the access. But I think just picking up on some of the points there, so it was about the concern regarding the, I suppose, the appearance of the terrace houses along the front, well, back and front of the site, along with the overall design of the bungalow. And then I think there's also concern about the car parking spaces, potential lack of visitor parking spaces. Is it the concern about the location of those spaces along the frontage of the site as well? Or is it more to do with the actual provision itself, which Ryan can come back in on?
When you look at these houses, they're roomed. Now, lots of people today, mum and dad both have a car. Kids start getting cars at 17. It strikes me it's going to end up being just a car park. Then you're going to have problems then with bin wagons not being able to get in, or if they do get in, they can't get out. Ambulances, fire engines, it's the same. I just think it's squashing a fair bit of development onto a small piece of land. As we keep getting told it's in a village, we know that villagers don't like traffic, they don't like big vehicles. I think it's wrong place to be developing something like this, but I think highways issues have got to be taken into consideration.
Okay. Anybody else? Right. Can we go to the vote, please?
Okay, so the vote is to refuse the application. Sorry.
Yeah. Go on, Julia. Sorry.
Sorry.
A bit too fast for you.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the moving to the vote to refuse the application then, so I think that last point just then in terms of the intensification of use of the site, linking in with, I think, then the overall design of the properties. So do you think that's like a design reason that you're looking at there in terms of the recommendation for refusal? Is that correct? Along with the principle of development in terms of the LP 61, is that correct?
Yeah. Are we okay with that, yeah?
Okay, let's go into the vote. Councillor Ramsey?
Against.
Against refusal?
Against refusal.
Councillor Dadd?
For refusal.
Councillor David Hall?
For.
Councillor Gregg?
For refusal.
Councillor Sheard?
For refusal.
Councillor Stephen?
For.
Councillor Sokol?
Against.
Councillor Steve Hall?
For refusal.
Councillor Scott?
For refusal.
Councillor Lawson?
For.
Councillor Marchington?
For.
Councillor Hussain?
Against.
So application is refused. Thank you.
Yeah, The application is refused. So we move on to item 10, 2020-94412.
Good afternoon. The interim team leader of the East Area Planning Team. I'm presenting this item on behalf of the case officer, Olivia Roberts, who's on annual leave at the moment. This is, excuse me, I've just lost my notes. This is an application for the installation of a replacement shopfront at 8 Cowper Street in Staveltown, Dewsbury. The application originally included the subdivision of the existing retail unit. During the course of the application, this element was removed from the proposal as the subdivision itself would not constitute development for the purposes of Section 55(2) of the Local Town and Country Planning Act 1990 and therefore does not require planning permission. The revisions to the application are set out in the committee report. As the external works to a building do require planning permission, the replacement shopfront is being considered as part of this application. The application is brought to committee at the request of Councillor Masood Ahmed for members to consider the impact of the proposal on design, appearance and visual amenity. Councillor Ahmed has also raised concerns about the highways impact of the subdivision of the retail unit. As the shopfront would facilitate the subdivision of the existing unit, concern regarding highway safety can be considered. There have been 15 representations against the application. I'm going to put on the aerial photograph. The application site is outlined in red and comprises a two-storey property. It includes a two-storey dwelling, ground floor retail unit and store to the front and rear of the site. From signage at the property, it appears that the hard standing to the front of the retail unit has previously been used for customer parking. The shopfront would facilitate the subdivision of the existing retail unit, which is illustrated on these submitted floor plans. The shopfront would replace an existing shopfront to the principal elevation of the building. Which fronts onto South Street. Whilst the shopfront would be substantially larger than existing, it is considered to be proportionate to the scale of the property. The materials and colour of the shopfront would reflect the existing frontage. Whilst the area is predominantly residential in nature, there are other commercial properties within the street scene. For these reasons, officer considers the impact on visual amenity to be acceptable. From on-site observations and information submitted by the neighbouring residents, it is apparent that there is a high demand for on-street parking. It is considered that the subdivision would likely result in a slight increase in parking demand. To mitigate any increase in parking demand, Highways Development Management requested that the existing off-street parking be confirmed and that details provided regarding how this could be maximised. However, no additional information has been submitted. When considering the existing use of the building, with no increase in retail floor area, along with the fact that the subdivision could be completed in any case without planning permission, the potential increase in parking demand is considered not to be sufficient to warrant refusal of this application. The proposal is considered acceptable from a highway perspective, therefore. It is considered that the replacement shopfront would not have a significant impact on the residential amenity of neighbouring properties. In conclusion, the proposed development is considered acceptable and would not result in a significantly harmful impact on visual amenity, residential amenity or highway safety. It is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Can I just ask a couple of questions? There used to be one retail unit there, and now they're asking for 4. Is it 4 or 5? Yeah. Is
there's no increase in retail floor space.
So do we know what usage is it going to be? What are they going to be used for? What retail?
We don't know. They're going to be general local shop retail units. It's much the same concept as when you have a department store with various concessions. So there's no increase in the retail floor space, but the number of units is increasing. So for that reason, the applicants want the shopfront to be altered and extended.
So do we think that that's going to generate more traffic? Depends on what's the usage of the units. If it's maybe turned into a takeaway food place, that will generate more traffic than just a normal retail shop.
A hot food takeaway, Chairman, would require a separate planning application because it's in a sui generis use. So the only uses that could be used as part of this subdivision would be retail uses without a separate planning application. This subdivision could take place without planning permission. Therefore, the assessment is that any car parking requirements are not a consequence of extending the shopfront, which is what this application is for.
Thank you for that. One question for the highways.
The next two speakers are on dial-in, so if you just bear with me a moment.
Hello, Mr. Ahmed. Welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes and you can start now.
Thank you very much. Going back to the report, on 10.16 of the officer's report, it makes a reference to a slight increase in traffic. Any increase in, whether it be slight or otherwise, will be a detrimental effect to the local residents. And we're already overburdened by highways of congestion, car parking, and etc. due to the existing shops. We've got 2 mosques on either side of the road. We've got a barber's, and we've already got 2 existing shops, 3 shops, if you include this one. So where it's got a slight increase in traffic is, I've got no idea, because there's been no rigorous or robust justification to support his remarks. All the measures that have been done were during the lockdown period when the shops were closed. So how does he come to that conclusion that it's going to have a slight increase in traffic? Furthermore, if you have a look at section 10.18, the officer has accepted that the proposal will place an additional pressure on residential parking. Again, the officer concludes he's happy to increase the burden on an already overwhelmed proportion of the highways, regardless of the detrimental impact on residential parking, amenities, congestion, and more importantly, highway safety. To conclude, what the officer is saying, that the short-term benefit of the profit of the business overweighs the long-lasting harm it would cause the local residents if this application was accepted. I myself, as a disabled person, use a disabled bay right outside the property, and there's been on various occasions where the disabled bays have been occupied by the existing shops. So to have 3 times more shops than there already is, how surely it's going to cause everybody a lot more problems. Furthermore, the highway report says that it's going to be the same floor plan, but again, that's flaw as well. For example, if you have a White Rose shopping centre, and if you take all the shops out and just have one shop, surely, and then it's going to have less traffic, when it's going to have, for example, 200 shops. So how would they get this conclusion, the same floor plan? Again, it needs clarifying. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Can we have the next speaker, please?
Unknown participant is now exiting.
All right, welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes and you can start now.
Right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just wanted to say the highway safety and car parking is a massive issue in the southern area.
Now, to ease congestion, the Highways Department have already implemented highways changes like a one-way system at Warren Street, all brought by congestion to do with the retail units, the mosque, the schools, and other shops, and all at the expense of the resident parking. 3 further units would therefore have a greater impact than a slight increase in traffic. It's a residential area. It should remain as a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, can we have the next speaker, please?
unknown
Welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes and you can start now.
Good afternoon, Chair, Councillors. This is a long-established Class E commercial property. The application before you today is simply for a replacement shop front. The principle of the subdivision of the retail unit is not development and does not fall within the remit of the planning system. This is established specifically in primary legislation, being Section 55(2) of the 1990 Town and Country Planning Act. The replacement shopfront involves the installation of picture windows and entrance doors with aluminium framing. The design of the shopfront is fully compliant with the local plan and encourages active frontage views into and out of the premises. It does not harm the visual amenity of the area. That's all I have to say on the matter, because it's just a replacement shopfront.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. I'll start off first. So going back to highways, I'm very familiar with the area, and there is actually issues with the traffic. Recently, South Street has been converted to one-way street because of that issue. Where this application is for 3 units, I think it will generate more traffic, and I just would like to ask yourself, how did you assess that? Was it when it was the lockdown, maybe there was less people about? There's a mosque nearby, one of the biggest mosques around, which generates a lot of people. A lot of people come from outside. There's a big event that takes place every year. So did you take all that into account? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. As has been sort of reiterated, this is applications for a shopfront only. The applicant could actually go and change the existing retail unit into 4 units tomorrow without planning permission, and we would be powerless to do that. So to refuse this on the shopfront, they could still go ahead and change it into 4 units. So there's no grounds for refusal on highways, unfortunately. So that's our position on it. Thank you.
Okay, members. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Chair. I think I would have been more minded to have approved it, and I appreciate that this is just for a shop front. But we all know that the intention ultimately will be for the original application. I don't think anyone would dispute that. Based on that, and the traffic concerns that have been highlighted, and I'm not sure that I'm not sure whether fellow members have spotted it in the detail, but there was a request originally for some off-street car parking. Had that been included within original application, I think people could see the mitigation of the concerns that local people have raised in objection. So I really don't feel comfortable with what's been presented today, based on the changes that have seemingly happened, based on the deviation from the original plan to just go down this road of it's just all about a sign on that basis.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this new shop front creating 4 units, yeah, it definitely create more traffic on there. To me, 3 extra units, that will get at least 2 employees units, so that means 6 employees, they might have each car, so 3 units may make 6 cars there, yeah, more than 6 cars, plus the original one. So, I don't know why there is a need for 4 units, because there is no supporting evidence on this one. So, in the residential area, if the local community already are experiencing some traffic congestion on there. How is this application creating fortune will be acceptable to the local area resident? I think, as I said, there's no supporting evidence there. There is a need for support. I will move to refuse this application. Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I think we're living in extraordinary times at the moment, and I'm going to bring into it the pandemic, and businesses are finding it very hard at the moment and having to diversify into other avenues. I'm fully aware of this business. I know where it is. I've used it. I've called there myself. So passing trade coming into that because of what they sell. I have got concerns, but I think we've got to work with businesses. So, and I know we're saying it's a shop front, and I'm not asking for approval of this. I'm going to ask members if you'll think about deferring it so we can talk about the parking issues, they can talk about the pollution. We need, there's consultation needed with residents, because I don't think not everybody will have responded. So I'm asking if we could defer it and get some more information together for this. I don't think it warrants refusal now or an acceptance. It's a deferral to me.
Councillor Gregg.
I actually agree with Councillor Scott. The way I would like to see things move forward is some solutions, and I appreciate we're just talking about the signage, but the highways issues related to the original proposal, I think potentially the committee might be more minded favourably on this one if there were some proposals based on off-road parking to alleviate some of the concerns on the highway. So I would potentially look to support a deferral on that basis.
Are you seconding Councillor Scott's?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Can I quickly, before I come to Councillor Lawson, can I just ask highways, have they got any off-street parking?
Through you, Chair. Currently, on the frontage of the site is actually on South Street, on the junction of Cowper Street, and there is an opening into the development. There is limited space, so once you get a number of cars in there, there isn't really a right lot of room for manoeuvre. The sort of practical option is to have a drop crossing along the full site frontage for customers. However, the only sort of downfall to that is you will actually lose more on-street residents parking because of the full width of the drop curb. So that would take away approximately 2 to 3, maybe 4 spaces for residents and would be more exclusive for customers. And just to note, there is some existing staff parking to the rear which would be utilised for staff and deliveries. So I'll leave it with you, councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Scott was giving voice to my exact thoughts. So, yeah, thoroughly support the deferral of this application so we can get to the bottom of a more agreeable parking situation. It's laid out for us in the report at 10, 17 and 18. Yes, it's understood that the subdivision is not within our gift. We don't have an opinion on it. So let's put that out of our minds. It does say, though, in 1017, notwithstanding that, the shop front is there to facilitate the subdivision. In that case, then we do have something to say about this in terms of highway safety. It did say here, notwithstanding Ryan's comments, no additional plans, this is in 1018, plans for information regarding the existing off-street parking has been submitted as part of the application. Now, I don't think we can proceed any further until we've seen that and give the applicant an opportunity to work with highways to try and find a suitable parking arrangement.
Thank you. Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Lawson beat me to it on that, because it is important that we know exactly the legalities of what we're considering here and what we shouldn't consider. It seems to be quite open. It's difficult as well, because I think we've got to be practical and pragmatic as to what is going to be the result of either a deferral or a refusal or even accepting the application. Because it seems to me if the applicant can go away and just subdivide his shop anyway, whatever we do here actually ain't worth a ha'porth of anything other than what is his shop front going to look like. And that seems to me the only thing we can give an opinion on. So I'm rather torn on that. I know we can consider the parking issue, but again, how are we meant to know whether there will be a substantial increase or not if we're not aware of the type of shop it is? Because a shop selling pianos might only get one person in a day, but a shop selling baked beans might have 200 people in a day. I mean, we really are whistling in the wind with this, I think. So I would be happy to support a deferral, providing we do get some information back about the parking situation. It may be that the information we get back says there is no prospect of doing anything with parking on this road because it's simply too congested, there's nowhere else for the cars to go. And in that case, we'll have to take a decision on it then. It may be that they say, well, actually, we found an ingenious solution somewhere which might affect things, and we have to take another decision. So I find it quite a tough one, this, but yes, I would support a deferral to get that extra information back.
Thank you. Julia?
Thank you, Chair. So just, I suppose, building on what Councillor Hall was just saying then, as you've correctly sort of set out between yourselves, the actual sort of the subdivision of the unit from a retail use into further retail uses, that doesn't require planning permission. So as you've correctly sort of referred to the report in here, that because the new shop front would facilitate the sort of subdivision, that the highways considerations do come into the assessment to a degree. But I think what I would just point out is if in terms of the existing building on site, there are actually access points into that building. So I think there's at least 3, possibly even 4 pedestrian doors that do actually provide access into that site. So I think if you think of it like that, to be quite honest, that building could actually be subdivided without the new shop front. So if you strip it back to that and consider, I suppose, the reasonableness of the highway grounds for whether a deferral or refusal, I appreciate what you're saying in terms of deferral, we can do that. But I think you just need to have it in mind that this could potentially take place even without this shop front, because I think, like I said, there's at least 3 doors, isn't there, from when we've looked at the site itself. So just to have that in mind and just considering that reasonableness on the highways grounds. Thank you, Chair and members.
Councillor Marchington. Councillor Ramsey.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Without a doubt, making it a more attractive shop will increase the footfall. That's the expectation of the business, and I think it's really clear that we don't know what the usage is going to be, and we haven't worked out how that footfall is going to be managed on a very, very crowded residential area. So, thank you.
Councillor Dowd.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is when you realise how important a site visit actually is. It's just a shame that we can't carry them out at the moment due to the pandemic, but this site in particular really does warrant a site visit. It's a very dense, highly populated area. It's a residential area. So from a highways point of view, I am concerned. I understand that, you know, that a few members here are wanting to defer so highways can go back and work with the applicant. I personally, but my knowledge of the area, I lived here for 29 years. I don't know how Highways will work with the applicant on finding any form of off-street parking or how that would work without residents in the area losing on-street parking. So I fully appreciate the points that have been made by members for deferral, but I'm going to second Councillor Sokol and go for a refusal against this particular application. The intention for the change of the shopfront would be to obviously help facilitate those 4 units more easily. That doesn't sit well with me just because of my local knowledge of the area and the impact that it would have on residents and highway safety. We've got 2 large mosques, 3, sorry. We have one currently building an extension just off the road on Warren Street, which one of the residents highlighted recently. We've implemented a temporary PRO, a one-way system to kind of help ease the traffic issues that we are having in the area. So I don't see how this will worsen it if help in any way. But we do have a school and we also have a nursery, a stone throw away on the same road. So for me, those are the points for refusal. Let's see what we decide as a committee. Thank you.
Any other members? Councillor Scott?
Yeah, I hear what Councillor Daddy said, but obviously I'm going for the deferral because I know it's a busy street, I understand, but that business is a well-established business there. It's been there a lot of years and they can't be blamed for all the parking issues on that street. So that's why I'm just asking for that little bit more of information. Once we get it, we can reassess it then. So it's about, we've got to be seen to be showing to support local businesses, particularly in these climates, so they can diversify, but equally on balance, listen to what the community's got to say. So I just thought I'd say that. So.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. So first, Councillor Scott and Councillor Gregg for deferral. So shall we vote on that first? Okay, yeah.
To vote for deferral, Councillor Ramsey.
Against.
Councillor Dodd.
Against.
Councillor David Hall.
For.
Councillor Gregg.
For.
Councillor Sheard.
For.
Councillor Stephen.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
Against.
Councillor Steve Hall.
For.
Councillor Scott. Councillor Lawson.
For.
Councillor Marchington.
For.
Councillor Sain.
For.
A deferral, so that application is deferred. Thank you.
Item 11, application number 2021-91052. Yeah, so what we're doing, we're taking both applications together, 11 and 12. So item 12 application number is 2021-91053.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Sarah Longbottom, Deputy Team Leader in Development Management. Excuse me, it's just skipped. So, as has just been said, the following presentation will include both items 11 and 12 at numbers 105 and 105A Warren Street, Savilletown, Dewsbury. Members will need to vote separately on each application. However, they are both retrospective planning applications for a change of use to car sales. For context, number 105 is a site to the left of this slide, and number 105A is to the right. This is an aerial image of the sites showing them alongside each other. for context, with Warren Street to the south. Now on screen is the proposed block plan for both applications. The two sites were formerly a factory site, which has been divided into two smaller sites. Each site comprises an office and a garage with car sales area to the front with access onto Warren Street. Just got some images here showing number 105 from Warren Street. So the image on the lower part of the screen shows how the unit is associated, the unit associated with number 105 sits behind an adjacent dwelling. The top image here shows the access to the lower part of number 105, whilst the lower image is a picture from within the site. And these images show number 105A from the highway, from both the front and the side. So going back to the site layout, with regard to the impact of the developments on visual and residential amenity, officers consider that car sales, if conducted in compliance with the submitted plans and details, would result in less harm than the previous factory use. However, with regard to highway safety, the use for car sales would result in the intensification of use of the highway by virtue of additional demand for on-street parking and the movement of vehicles for sale on the highway. This would further exacerbate existing highway safety issues within the vicinity of the site. The developments would therefore fail to ensure a safe and efficient flow of the highway network, contrary to policy LP21 of the local plan and Chapter 9 of the NPPF. As set out in paragraphs 10.25 to 10.29 of the committee report, members will note that conditions to manage parking on the highway would not be enforceable and a traffic regulation order cannot be relied upon given that it is outside of planning legislation. For this reason, officers recommend refusal of both applications as set out within the respective reports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can we have the first speaker, please? Nasser Hussain. Welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes and you can start now.
Thank you very much. As someone who has resided in the area for almost 35 years, along with my fellow residents, we have encountered our fair share of issues with parking, traffic flow, even businesses operating in the area. But with our unique community spirit and cohesion, we have always come to a compromise and found solutions. However, this issue, which is coming up to almost 3 years, has been nothing experienced before and has put a real strain on all the hard work so many of us have put in an effort to be creating a safe and inclusive environment. We are not accustomed to having to call authorities because of the businesses operating during unsociable hours, attracting unsavoury characters causing commotion, having the DVLA turn up, clamping vehicles. This is not the kind of behaviour we want our children and grandchildren to be exposed to. It's not how they've been brought up. The tenants have been operating whilst in the premises unlawfully, with complete disregard for the residents and the general health and well-being of the public at large. There is a sense of arrogance about their demeanour to such an extent they are encouraging other individuals to operate without the appropriate planning and colluding together to make what is already a very difficult situation far from any resolve. This area is already a prominent area for access to and from Savile Town. They already have heavy populated traffic flow, which has recently been increased due to the one-way system implemented only a few hundred yards away. With the businesses operating here has added to that immensely and continue to do so with their approach and attitude. We have all the while, as residents, been patient, seeking advice from the council, councillors and our local MPs. We know there are processes to follow, but it appears those processes are just for us, and these parties are exempt with the delay tactics used again and again, making a mockery of the system. I'm sure you're fully aware previous application was made and refused, appealed and still refused, only for the individuals to make these new applications without any significant changes made to their approach and how they are going about conducting their business and the impact it is having on the area at large, with the original concerns raised remain unchanged. Which brings us to where we are today. I'm a strong believer if anyone wants to make a change and effort, they can do so, and I believe 3 years is a sufficient period to make that change. However, there has been no or little evidence of that. Where I reside, I can see directly the impact on a daily basis these businesses are having on the traffic flow, congestion and the environment as a whole, and it's only a matter of time before a tragedy occurs and we are sat here thinking about what we could have done to avoid this. This is that opportunity to take control before it's too late, take a stance for these businesses to no longer
30 seconds
to trade, and send a clear message to the landlord and any potential suitors and future applicants that this nature of businesses is not fit for purpose in this area, period. We urge yourselves to wholeheartedly reject these applications and bring this matter to a close once and for all. A lot of our time and much as yours has been spent with this matter, not to mention the strain on resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have the next speaker, please? Ramesh Gladhill. Hi, welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes. You can start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members. My name is Hamish Gledhill. I'm the planning consultant acting on behalf of the client. The issues here relate to planning procedures rather than just a straightforward assessment of the principle of the development. And my request is that the planning application is deferred to allow traffic regulation order to be completed. There are 2 businesses operating on these sites, and people's jobs and livelihoods are at stake here. I appreciate they have been operating without the benefit of planning permission, but this has been through a lack of understanding of the system rather than any intention of dissent. The applicant has been attempting to regularise these uses on site, but unfortunately with some unsound previous planning advice, they find themselves in the position they are today. Please can I refer members to paragraph 4.1 of the committee report in front of you. It sets out that the last 2 planning applications were refused due to the submission of insufficient information. The decision notices for these applications set out the applicant failed to submit information relating to air quality, noise, lighting, and failed to enter into the agreement to provide a traffic regulation order. The current applications were submitted, including the necessary noise report, air quality and lighting information, and as set out in 8.1 of the committee report, the Council's Environmental Officer has no objection to the application. Information was also submitted for the traffic regulation order, and everything else with the planning application is fine. Traffic regulation orders cost thousands of pounds, and it is quite normal for the principle of the planning application to be considered acceptable before the applicant pays for the TRO. And as set out in the report, it is usually dealt with by planning condition. In this case, the necessary information was provided, and Kirklees Highway Development Manager have assessed the information and conclude they are satisfied with the scheme subject to the TRO being undertaken. Before we've been able to start a dialogue about how to formally submit the TRO once the principle is accepted, we've been told that this is a retrospective application and this can't be conditioned, which suggests that this planning application would never have been successful. As we know, the principle of this application is acceptable as set out in the report, and conditioning the TRO does not seem to be appropriate. And all we ask now is the applicant is given time to apply for the TRO and allow that to be determined before this application is determined. We therefore ask that this planning application is determined to allow the TRO to be made before this application is determined. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can we have the next speaker, please? Fahida Bradri. Hi, welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes and you can start now. Thank you.
As the owner and landlady for both these units, I'd like to raise a couple of points. Number 1 being mainly to say that we have always taken the safety and well-being of the neighbourhood into consideration, and would absolutely like to work with the residents to ensure that all are kept safe and happy. We have had both the units for a long time, since 1990, and we have always made sure to have addressed the residents' feelings and concerns when it has come to letting out both the properties. We have had car sales in 105A previously and have also had a car detailing business in 105. There are other businesses on this road also, UK Greetings and Mudney School. They add to the traffic flow also. UK Greetings use the bottom part of the road as an overflow car park, and so do Mudney School. When they rent the school out for weddings, they also use this road as an overflow car park. So why is it that our tenants that are the ones that are getting penalised for their use of traffic flow on this road? I do believe that this is not entirely fair. The location of both units is next to residential housing, but I do believe quite strongly that if we were to go back to a factory use, this would cause more harm than the car sales that are present at this moment in time, due to the fact that both these businesses have committed they would work on an appointment-based system only, which they have been doing for the last 18 months, therefore reducing the traffic flow. They will only operate work office hours 9 to 5/10 to 6. Night lighting sensors have been taken away and CCTV installed. Staff are limited to 2 people at any one time. Whereby if a factory use was to go ahead, which planning is already approved for, then there would be a lot more staff employed, which means more traffic flow, as there would be more staff vehicles. Delivery trucks would be up and down much more frequently on the road. They may have night shift working hours introduced, and also create a lot more noise due to the machinery that is used in manufacturing. Due to the nature of the location of both these units, no matter what business moves in, the neighbours may always raise concerns. But as a responsible owner and landlady, I can't have the units sitting empty. This part of Warren Street is a lot quieter in terms of traffic flow than the upper side of Warren Street, where there are several mosques, a supermarket, 2 other shops, a school, a nursery, and residential housing. Therefore, the reason for refusal on the basis of more traffic caused by the car sales, I believe, is a little frustrating and seems unreasonable, as some of the other points raised for change of use to be approved by Kirklees Council have been addressed to their satisfaction. I would like to finish off by saying that as a responsible landlady, I am willing to work with the residents and planning department of the council
30 seconds.
to come to a fair resolution for all concerned. Finally, I would like to thank the panel for the time given for me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have the next speaker, please? Louisa. Hi, welcome to the meeting. You've got 3 minutes and you can start now.
Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Luisa. I'm the owner of Autotrend. I'm a Romanian national, been in UK for the last 6 years now. I came from a family of business people. I set up Autotrend in 2015-2016, and I started off a small business on the Vulcan Road, West Town. Over the years, my business has grown, and I recently moved into Warren Street in the last 2-3 years, taking on the unit on the small yard, but since last year, I have been taking the next yard also to accommodate my stock. The business employs 2 permanent staff members. It's an ideal premises to operate from, where I have become well established, and I built a large customer base from all over UK. I try my best to operate within the premises, and I have always felt welcome on the area, and I have made many friends on the area as well as the local customers. Wherever, over the last year, it has become apparent to me that I now very liked by certain people who object to my business operating from here. Like any businesses, things can sometimes get very busy, and we do sometimes get overwhelmed with increasing customers, but we do provide parking on the premises, and these busy times, they are only temporary and usually do settle down after an hour or so. I don't interfere with any residents in the area. There are only 2 houses next to us, otherwise the rest is all commercial premises. I have been working closely with the planning officers and the landlady Wahida to provide a sound report, even agree to a traffic flow system to stop anybody complaining or any inconvenience. The last 18 months, we have started operating on the appointment basis for the customers' viewing as well, so traffic flow is completely reduced to very minimum. If I have break any rules or regulations, then please give me to some guidance and help, as I'm always working to improve the business. I feel every time I move on the business forward, there is always somebody trying to pull me back. I'm a UK taxpayer and I contribute to the area, and I look forward to working to some sort of agreement and being to put my focus back on the business. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have no further speakers or members. Councillor Scott.
These are the ones that really, really worry me, retrospective. And I think we've been here before with things like this. The reason we have a planning committee is to ensure that you are following the law in our planning, particularly in this area. So I'm not in supporting this application, and could the officer bring up the picture of the business, because they're clearly using the path for pedestrians as part of their business. It's an overflow for their business, and when I seen it, it even justified it more. I've been up and had a look as well, so I know the area really well, and I just think that, yes, it's nice somebody's building a business, but it's not for the right place. And if you look on, I don't know what page it is, page 79, it shows you the extensive history of enforcement and things that have gone on there. I think it's really, really worrying, and you can see that that is an extension of a business being used. So there's obviously no on-site parking. It's very worrying, so I'm moving to refuse this application, both of them.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson.
I'll second that, Chair. I've said it before, I'll say it again, no doubt, before I stop serving on this committee, but, you know, Kirklees is not in the business of putting businesses out of business. However, they have to follow the rules. This is obviously a persistent matter and not an appropriate place for this business. So, yeah, I will support Officer's recommendation on this. Thank you.
Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Lawson got in there before me. I was wanting to second Councillor Scott on Officer's recommendations for refusal. We don't want to be seen as condoning unlawful behaviour in our areas. Thank you.
Councillor Steve Hall.
Thanks, Chair. Just back up what others have said. I mean, the amount of years that I've done this planning committees, and I say the same thing every time about retrospective planning. If people want to do that, then we might as well all pack up and go home and just let them get on with it. You can see there's problems with parking, otherwise they won't be parking on the road. It's a bit of a chance, yeah. Somebody could move a factory onto that site. It might be noisy. It might be wanting to work at night, but all that would be sorted out, hopefully, through the planning system. And one thing I've got to take exception with, a responsible landlord would not let a business that has not got planning permission trade from a site like this. So, responsible? No, I don't think so.
Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I agree, and I've made the comment myself before about that we should take a tough stance on people that apply for retrospective stuff, because you shouldn't have gone ahead with it in the first place. But I have a niggle in the back of my mind about this one, and it's just, again, it's back to the pragmatism and the practicalities of what happens if we refuse it. Because to say, well, you shouldn't have done it, therefore we're going to refuse it, to my mind, is not enough to refuse it. We've got to have a planning reason to refuse it, I think. And I think that's where we're on slightly shakier ground. Because, that we could get a proposal from another applicant next week to say, well, I want to put a car sales on there. And the only reason you refused it last time is because you didn't like the fact that it was retrospective. So what would our response to that be? I think, we have to come along with a planning concern, and that might be highways. But again, I'm a bit torn on this, because the use of it at the moment is manufacturing. And like Councillor Hall's just said, I mean, it could be that someone just continues with the puts a manufacturing plant on, which they can do. They don't need a change of use. But would that actually result in any more cars or any fewer cars? My feeling is that actually, in terms of traffic generated, probably a car sales place is not the busiest of places that could be on that site. But then again, it may be that people want something completely quiet, which wouldn't hardly generate any traffic at all. So I'm just a bit torn on it, on the message we're giving, really, if you understand me. I wouldn't be happy to refuse it without a proper planning, grounds for doing so.
Councillor Scott?
Well, it does say on the beginning of the report how it's exacerbated the parking issues on the highways, because it's clearly whatever industry is running car sales, it's not a big enough unit to host it, because if you encroach on pedestrians' footpaths, that becomes a problem. So I would say on highways issues, it's exacerbated, and the parking on the curbs and things like that. So it's safety as well.
Councillor David Hall again.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I don't think it's actually been shown that it's exacerbated the issue, because we're not aware of what the issue was like before it was a car sales place. So again, I think we need a little bit more information on that. Although I would say that there is a need for enforcement, of course, about using the highway. And I think we perhaps all get this from time to time in our own wards, that someone just pipes up and starts parking loads of cars on a pavement and puts, prices in the window and uses it as a forecourt. And that shouldn't be allowed, for either pedestrian safety or for traffic safety. So I would hope some enforcement, whatever the result of the planning application, I hope some enforcement will take place in that regard.
Do you want to come back?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Councillor Hall, but yeah, again, I think we've got retrospective, take that into account. Whatever we say today, would it be adhered to? And that's the point I'm making as well, because I actually think the trade will continue until enforcement it gets round to them. So, no, I'm mindful it's to do with the highways issue. I want to support businesses. I'm not in the thing of getting rid of businesses, but it's the wrong place, wrong location, and that's it, basically.
Thank you. Julia?
Thank you, Chair. So just, I suppose, following on from Councillor Scott just then and Councillor Hall discussions just before that. So in terms of the application, like I say, there is a recommendation set out by members, which is based on the highways grounds at page 66 of the agenda for the 105 Warren Street, and then for the 105A Warren Street, it's on page 78. So the same grounds there. They are based on material planning considerations. They are based on, in terms of the assessment which is being carried out by our officers, in terms of our highways officers, as well as in terms of looking at those representations that have been received as part of the course of the application as well, which are also summarised in the agenda. So, like I say, from that perspective, there is a sound recommendation which is based on a material planning consideration set out in the report. And as you've correctly pointed out, because something's retrospective, it doesn't mean that it's an automatic no. It needs to be based on planning considerations. And like I say, in this instance, that recommendation is set out in the report, in the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol?
No, I was going to ask Mr. Mayor, it's Mr. Chair. Sorry, not too good. So, Mr. Chair, I've been sit on the planning committee for many years. I don't like the idea two members keep exchanging this issue between them. It's your job to ask the officer to respond to the councillor. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Any other members? Councillor Scott?
I will address this one to you then, Chair. I hear what Councillor Sokol is saying. My point I was making is for the people that are watching it on the webcast to clarify what I was saying. So even if I turn, I could turn within the chamber. Doesn't mean I'm talking to Councillor Hall. So just for clarity then.
Oh, that's fine, Councillor Scott. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Any other members? So are we moving, who's moving? Councillor Scott and Councillor Lawson seconding for refusal. Go to the vote, please.
Okay, so we need to take two separate votes. So we'll vote on item 11 first. So The proposal is to refuse the application in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Councillor Ramsey.
I declared an interest.
Oh, sorry, yes, you have declared an interest. Yeah, Councillor Dodd.
For refusal.
Councillor David Hall.
I'm going to abstain, Chair.
Councillor Gregg.
For refusal.
Councillor Sheard.
For.
Councillor Stephen. Abstain. Councillor Sokol.
Abstain.
Councillor Steve Hall.
For refusal.
Councillor Scott.
For refusal.
Councillor Lawson.
For.
Councillor Marchington.
For.
Councillor Hussain.
For.
Okay, so item 11 is refused. Item 12. Councillor Dodd.
For refusal.
Councillor David Hall.
Abstain.
For refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Sheard.
For refusal.
Councillor Stephen. Abstain. Councillor Sokol.
Abstain.
Councillor Steve Hall.
For refusal.
Councillor Scott.
For refusal.
Councillor Lawson.
For.
Councillor Marchington.
For.
Councillor Hussain.
For.
So that, of course, application is also refused.
Right, moving on to item 13, planning application 2021 91170. Can you pause 1 minute, please, Julia?
Thank you, Chair. So during the course of today's meeting, we were expecting a speaker to be attending, the applicant, Mr Aldersley. Unfortunately, he's had to leave early, so he's put a request forward whether his application can be deferred. It's up to members. Like I say, there is a report in front of you, but it's, like I say, it's over to members in terms of what you'd like to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think, yeah, go, Councillor Gregg.
I'm happy to propose a deferral on that one.
Councillor Scott, second. So we need to vote on this, or?
Are all members in favour of deferral?
Is everybody in favour, yeah? Okay. That's deferred. So we're moving on to item 14, planning application 2021 91940.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Please, could you let me know if you can see that, please?
Yeah, we can see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. My name is Alice Downham. I'm the case officer for this application. The application relates to 40 Beckett Crescent in Dewsbury Moor, Dewsbury, and is for the erection of single and two-storey extensions and the formation of vehicle access. This application was deferred at the Planning Subcommittee on the 22nd of July 2021 for further negotiation to achieve reductions to the scheme. The application site is outlined in red and comprises a two-storey semi-detached property which is constructed from brick and render. The proposal is for the erection of a single-storey front extension, a two-storey side extension, and single and two-storey rear extensions. To the front of the property, vehicle access would be created to an off-street parking area for 4 vehicles. The plans as originally submitted are shown on the left. On the right are the amended plans received since the application was deferred at the previous subcommittee meeting. Since the previous meeting, officers have been in negotiation with the agent. Amended plans have been received showing the front elevation of the two-storey side extension set back from the front elevation of the host dwelling by 0.3 metres at the first floor level. The roof line of the two-storey elements will be set down by 0.1 metres from the roof line of the host dwelling. All other elements of the proposal are unchanged. This slide again shows the original plans on the left and the amended plans on the right. Officers acknowledge that the proposal has a somewhat more subservient appearance thanks to the amendments. However, it is considered that the amended proposal does not overcome the previous reasons for refusal and is not in line with local policy and guidance. The report before members details the officers' full assessment of the development, which has also been discussed in more detail at the previous subcommittee meeting on the 22nd of July. In conclusion, officers still recommend refusal of the development for the reasons set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think I'll start off. This comes in my ward, and I know the area. It's quite a big plot where the house is. There's a lot of land on the side and a lot of land at the back. So, in my view, I don't think so it's overbearing to the next door property. It's, there's still a lot of space and it's not overshadowing. And they've got enough car parking space. They're showing in the drawing that they are showing 4 parking spaces at the front. So I'll leave it to members, see what they say. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I think we asked this resident to go away and reduce it. They have. If people have been out, I hope people have been out to the site and actually visited it and seen the extensive piece of land there. It is in keeping now. I'm happy to support this application. They've actually gone away and done what we've asked to reduce it. And well, all but small, they've done the reduction.
Thank you. Councillor Dodd.
If Councillor Scott is supporting, I'll second that. I did move to defer it at the last meeting in July, and I did say if the officers and the applicant work together and they come back with something that's workable, we can have a look at it, and that's exactly what they've done. So yeah, I'd like to support this.
Councillor Sokol.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think the applicant has come back and reduced some extension on the side, on the height as well, on 0.3 or 0.4 meters, yeah, something like that. I think I see there is no objection to this application, nearby houses, or as you, Mr. Chair, you said you know the area very well. There's a wide land around there. So I'm happy to support Councillor Scott's move to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Chair. It says it's come back and been reduced. Do we have an idea how much it's been reduced by? Because I'm sorry, but plans are so small I can hardly see any difference between what were there before and what's there after.
Can we have Sarah back?
Hi Chair, it's Alice again. So the plans show that the front elevation has been set back by 0.3 metres from the front elevation, and the two-storey elements, sorry, please excuse the background noise, the two-storey elements have been set back by 0.1 metres.
Can I just come in again? I'm interested in how, if members are satisfied that it's been reduced very much by a foot in one direction and 10 centimetres in another direction. I wouldn't call that scaling back. You can barely see any difference. The other thing is in paragraph 10.3, which is at the top of page 104, it does say that these proposed extensions will more than triple the footprint of the building. Now, I'd like to know where we stand in our planning policies on this, because I always had the understanding from some years ago, I admit, that it would be very difficult to get a planning application through which doubled your footprint of your property, never mind tripling it. And that's always been the kind of rule of thumb that I've gone by. Are we happy that we pass plans that triple the size of an existing building, and would we be happy to pass them anywhere else? I think we've just got to tread very carefully, because that is enlarging the building considerably.
Any other speakers? Councillor Stevens?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'll just back up what Councillor Hall's just said, that to me that's not enough of a change at all for it to be approved in my mind. There's quite a lot of information that the officers have put down there to refuse it, and it looks like it's going against lots of policies in the local plan. I'm not satisfied enough to approve this at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Marchington?
I mean, elsewhere, various planning committees have not been happy to approve such substantial increases in a property. I'm aware of that in my ward. What surprises me a little is that residents on either side have not put in submissions, and can you just ask from the planning office if that's right, that neither residents at number 38 or number 32 have objected to this application, because it's for them. I mean, there is a substantial amount of ground around number 40, so it might be that the development doesn't have an adverse impact on their perception of amenity in elsewhere it wouldn't be acceptable. So have we had any representations from the neighbours on this?
Alice?
Thank you, Chair. We've received 2 letters of support, in fact, from the 2 neighbouring properties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Lawson? Sorry. Go on.
I think notwithstanding, it does ordinarily, it would concern me about this scale of development in this situation, but given that the local residents who are most affected by it do not have written letters of support, I think that does have a bearing for me in terms of amenity and impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Chair. So I suppose what I'd just like to sort of raise with members at this moment in time as well, before sort of you move any further along. We have now got the adopted House Extension and Alterations SPD, which you'll all be aware of. It's been referred to in the report as well. And I suppose just pointing out some sort of what as the council were trying to achieve as part of that. For example, it's things such as at paragraph 5.20 of the SPD, it sets out that sort of having the extension set back at least 500 millimetres. So in this case, it's 300 millimetre. We would normally be trying to encourage the 500. At paragraph 5.22 of the SPD, it sets out about having a 1 metre gap where, like adjacent to a boundary with another property, which once again in this instance, because of the shape of the application site, that's not achieved either. So I think just as part of your discussion and your considerations there, it's just having those matters in mind as well. And it is a comply or justify, but like I said, I just wanted to draw those to your attention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself agreeing with Councillor Hall here. I am uncomfortable with the remaining mass of the building. I don't think it's acceptable. I think officers have given us enough reasons for us to refuse this rather than defer it for further negotiation. I think it would have to come back as a new application. I would say this, that I won't be voting for this, so sorry, I won't be voting against officers' refusal, if you know what I mean. What I would say, though, is if it goes through, could we at least ensure that there's a condition removing permitted development rights that's attached to this, because it's got to a size now where really anything that happens in the future really has to come back to this this committee. But yeah, I won't be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? There's no further speakers. Councillor Scott is moving approval and Councillor Dodd is seconding. Can we go for the vote, please?
Yep, Councillor Ramsey. Abstain. Councillor Dodd.
Against officer recommendation.
Yeah, so we're voting for approval.
For approval, yeah.
Councillor David Hall. You're voting against approval. Councillor Gregg.
Against approval.
Councillor Sheard.
Against approval.
Councillor Stephen. Against. Councillor Sokol. Councillor Steve Hall.
For approval.
Councillor Scott.
For approval, but with the condition to remove any permitted development rights any further.
Yeah. Councillor Lawson.
Against.
Councillor Marchington.
Abstain.
Councillor Sane.
For.
That's yeah, it's a costume voucher.
For.
So it's carried.
That's carried. For. That brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you.